Welcome to the regular meeting of Helotes City Council. It's February 10th, 2022. The time is 7 p.m. We'll rise and we'll have the invocation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Father God, we come before you and thank you for your grace, your mercy, and your wisdom to be bestowed upon us this evening as we contemplate and discuss the city business. I pray, Lord God, that you guide our conversations. May they be fruitful and productive. In your name we pray. Amen. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Come on, there we go. All right. Okay. So our mayor's report today just deals a little bit with a note to the general public. We've had a lot of communications, concerns, letters being written to all of the council members, and which is fine. It's nothing wrong with a citizen reaching out to all the council members, but you may wonder why you don't get a response. And part of that is that if council members respond to something that they're a part of, that's called a quorum, because they're all part of it. And anytime 3 or more council members are involved in a conversation, that has to be publicized, has to be put out according to the Texas Open Meetings Act. It has to be advertised 72 hours beforehand. And so I say that, not that anybody's done anything wrong, but there's been a lot of concerns about issues lately, and sometimes people reach out, and when a citizen reaches out and includes everybody, we're precluded from really responding to that in that fashion. You may or may not receive maybe some feedback from city staff. That would be a possible, or if anybody calls me directly, I can share information, answer questions, etc. But for those that reach out individually, I do my best to reach out and respond, and we'll continue to do that as part of my commitment to transparency and clear communications. But if you include everybody, I just want to explain why you may not get a response, because there are laws that govern how we do respond. At this point, we're going to go into citizens to be heard. We have several people signed up. When I call your name, if you don't mind coming up to the podium, speak your name and your address, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak on whatever topic you want. We cannot respond, so this is not a dialogue. This is just your chance to be able to share on whatever topic you wish to discuss. Looks like some Janine, is it Janine? Mo? Okay, excellent.
Yes, good evening. My name is Janine Permomo, and my address is 9705 Tower View Road. I'm in the ETJ in Helotes, and I am expressing my opposition to the proposed QT, the quick trip that is proposed to be built. I attended the planning and zoning meeting about a little over a week ago and heard that they had denied the variances, and we're going to send that on to City Council. I wanted to read to you something that I wrote, because there are a number of citizens, and I'm sure you've heard, that are opposed to this. It's not that we're opposed to a quick trip, because we understand what a quick trip is. We actually, many of us like it. It's on that particular corner. That's on a corner where Scenic Loop is, obviously on that corner. And that's a historic city loop. Legislative actions long ago designated that as a historic corridor. And we consulted with a commercial real estate individual, And he did say, we may not be able to stop it. However, we can make a concerted effort to protect the character of our hill country. We need to be forward-thinking individuals and protect the scenic nature of this small community and hold developers accountable to preserve as much charm in this community as possible. There are some things I would suggest. One is City Council has a responsibility to make sure that the development fits with the city. Planning and zoning, as I stated, did not approve the design plan. There was no transparency in this. None of the citizens that I know of knew anything about this. And by the time the design was presented to P&Z, it was almost like it was a done deal. So there was no input from the citizens or residents of Helotes. This is going to be a large piece of concrete and asphalt, and we need to hold them accountable to a design plan that is different from their standard storefronts. The frontage areas, according to the real estate consultant, indicated that the frontage areas could be pushed back considerably, and then you can buffer it with larger trees. Because their plan, there is no tree preservation. I think we're pretty aware of that. Developers will pay a penalty, and that penalty will be used to basically cut down whatever they want. So regardless of what we say, we know that that can happen. The area around KFC, the Navy Federal Credit area, and the wash tub, all of those trees were completely removed because developers paid the fee. So there really is no tree preservation. You can use a light quarry.
Time is up.
Oh, already?
Very close.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. Thank you very much, and I appreciate your comments. Thank you. Okay, next up we have, my reading glasses here. Shauna Mission? I'm sorry. Okay. Yes. Hi.
Good evening. My name is Shauna Mishong. I live at 13907 Circle A Trail in the Helotes Park Estates. I came tonight to put a face behind the business that has a sign up for the approval tonight for the Eclective. I'm in the Helotes Country Village Shopping Center, and I'm just ready to get a sign up and be fully open and ready to go. So if y'all have any questions when that part comes up, I will answer it to the best of my ability.
You got it. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Mr. Edward Olmo.
My name is Edward Olmo. I live at 9829 Cache Mountain Road. Born and raised right here in San Antonio. Grew up on the far west side. I'm happy to announce that I'm a proud Helotes resident for the last 17 years. I am against any city ordinance variances for the corner of Bandera and Scenic Loop. Those variances were put there for a reason, to protect and preserve our great city. I am not against variances or businesses coming in. I'm all for that. I am the recent beneficiary of a variance. Thank you for my gate variance. Appreciate that. And I am asking that we keep the ordinances that are already in place, because they're put there for a reason. Thank you. And I just wanted to mention something real quick. Thank you for approving one of my Eagle Scouts, soon to be Eagle Scout. He's going to put in a flag
holder.
depository here somewhere. I'm not supposed to get involved with that. He's supposed to do it all on his own. But I've heard that he was approved to put in one here somewhere on the grounds. I just want to say thank you.
All right, this would be Megan Louder. Did I get that right, Megan?
Hello, my name is Megan Louder. I live on 14814 Antonio Drive in Helotes, Texas. Been here for quite a while now. I say that I'm pretty comfortable here. I have a few ordinances to bring up in question to the QT gas station coming up on the corner there of Bandera and Scenic Loop. I am opposed to the development of that, but the questions I have are going to be in reference to Chapter 94, Article 1, Section 94-7, the Heritage Tree Protection. How are we going to go about that? I know that you can take money from it, but I'd like to see where that money is going to plant new trees. Helotes is a flood zone. Those trees have deep roots in our soil that help mitigate those flood waters. So if they're going to be putting concrete all over that, Article 4, Section 34, 53 through 53 is our storm drain ordinance. And that ordinance says that the concrete can't put out more storm drain water than before. And with that much land being paved over, there is going to be more water that's going to be put out. There's no detention center that I saw in the plans. And I also have an ordinance 396, Article 334-42. And I do not have that one labeled. So if y'all could do me the due diligence of looking that article up, I would greatly appreciate it. I think it must be a tree ordinance, maybe. But if you could look that up, I did have a question about that one as the council members. I would trust that it's 396, Ordinance 396, Article 3, Section 34 through 42. I did write that down for a reason. So thank you for looking those up for me.
Sure. All right. And finally, we have Mr. Emery Blom.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. My name is Emery Bloom. I'm the president of Scenic Loop Helotes Creek Alliance. It's an alliance of residents along Scenic Loop from Bandera Road to Babcock Road, about 6,000 acres, about 1,000 residents. Our organization is opposed to any QT or any gas station going in at the corner of Scenic Loop and Bandera Road. Our neighborhood alliance was formed to preserve the corridor, the Scenic Loop corridor from Bandera Road to Babcock as a park-like scenic neighborhood drive, and to protect the tree canopy and the dark skies along that corridor. And as much as I like QT and I go to QT quite often, it really is not appropriate for that corner. Thank you very much. I'm behind your planning and zoning's recommended opposition to QT on that corner. And our alliance, our neighborhood is opposed to it for several more reasons. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, Selena, I believe you have a write-in comment you want to read into the record?
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Council, I do want to enter a public comment into record. This resident could not attend due to health reasons. The resident is Marcella Hawk. She resides at 10218 Rafter S Trail. She is also in opposition of the QT. Specifically, she says a 24-hour brightly lit business with underground storage tanks would be better situated in an already populated area that has already been developed. Tearing down trees, pouring concrete, and placing underground storage tanks in this precise location would be a disservice to the spirit of Old Town Helotes.
All right. Thank you very much. At this point, we're going to move on to the we have no consent agenda. We have items for individual consideration. I guess we'll go with item number 4, motion and a second for discussion and action on approving the minutes from our previous meeting. Item number 4 is written. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we discuss and take action on the minutes of the regular meeting. Item number 4.
Motion by Massey, second by
I'll second that.
Sanders. Any discussion?
The only thing I just wanted to compliment our city secretary, Selena, for putting together this, the minutes in such a way that's coherent, because I know that meeting, some of the issues we discussed were not easy to decipher. She managed to do a very good job, so I would recommend approval of the minutes.
And I agree with my colleague. I have no issues with it.
Okay. Anybody have any comments on it? Okay. All in favor of approving item number 4 is written, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. At this point, we need a motion and a second for discussion and action on item number 5 as written.
Mr. Mayor, I move we discuss and take action on agenda item number 5.
Okay, Sanders, second by
I'll second.
Merchant. Okay, Councilman?
So this agenda item is to recommend appointment of Mr. Dave Cato to the Planning and Zoning Commission. I know Mr. Cato personally. I've worked with him for the last 5 or 6 years, part of the Iron Horse Canyon Homeowners Association. He's been a driving force within that organization for a long time, 15, 16 years. But specifically, he's had a lot of experience with, if any of you who live in homeowners associations know that he played a big role in the architectural control committees, which is like a smaller version of what P&Z does. Instead of ordinances, they're dealing with CCRs, and they have to make hard decisions based on the rules of the HOA. So he's a perfect fit. He's got the background, he's meticulous, and I think he'll flourish on the commission.
Yes, sir. I think Mr. Cato is an excellent selection for this post. He's corrected me several times within the OA, so he is well aware of the rules and how they work, so he'd be an excellent choice for this. I don't know anything.
No.
Well, I will chime in, and I've worked with David since 17 years before we even had a resident-appointed board on the HOA for Iron Horse, and I gotta tell you, he's been there since day one, doing exactly what P&Z does for homeowners associations. I couldn't think of a better applicant. Without any further discussion, all in favor of approving David Cato to the Planning and Zoning Commission, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations and welcome aboard. Thank you very much for stepping up. All right. This brings us to item number 6, which looking for a motion to second to discuss and take action on item number 6 is written.
I make a motion, we discuss and take action on agenda item number 6.
Ozar, second by,
I'll second.
let's see, Councilmember?
All right, I attended the planning and zoning meeting where this was discussed. The wall sign was completely within all the parameters that are set, and it was unanimously approved, and I recommend we also approve it.
Okay.
And it's a very nice looking sign too. So I'm very much for this sign as well.
No comment. Looks great. Nothing to add.
Greg?
I'm good, sir.
All right. No further discussion. All in favor of approving item number 6 is written, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Looking for a motion and a second to discuss and take action on item number 7 is written.
I motion that we discuss and take action on item number 7.
Second by
I'll second.
Merchant.
Okay.
Councilmember?
And pretty much the same thing. All the rules were followed on the sign, and planning and zoning unanimously approved for this sign to move forward. So I also recommend that we approve this sign.
Thank you.
Agree, 100%.
No problem with this.
No issues. Great.
Okay. All in favor of approving item number 7 is written, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We need a motion, a second to discuss and take action on item number 8, the final plat, for Ricewood Subdivision Unit 6. So we need a motion made by,
I make a motion that we discuss and take action on item number 7,
this will be 8, item number
or
8.
8, sorry,
sorry.
8.
Okay.
We're to 8 now.
Motion made by Salazar, second by
I'll second it.
Councilman.
Okay, so I live in Brycewood, and I have spoken with the residents in Brycewood. One of our concerns, well, mine as well as others who've spoken with me, is that this number 6 here will add 123 homes to the Brycewood subdivision. Currently, we have one entrance into the subdivision, and there was concern about us not having one for traffic purposes. There is, I did see a gate for emergency purposes that I believe our fire and police, in the event of emergency, would be able to open the gate and let us out to another areas if for some reason our one entrance was not usable. I did speak with the city administrator, Marion, and I asked about that. Is there any plan for us to have a second entrance as we're adding this whole nother section to our already very large subdivision that's growing quickly? So Marion, I was hoping you could explain that a little bit more.
Yes, if you look at sheet 1 on the top, Bent Canyon actually goes out into Silver Canyon, and it will actually connect to Mill Park, and that will be the ingress and egress out, and that will be from Brycewood into Silver Canyon.
Okay, so that was the main point that I wanted to cover, that as the subdivision is growing, that we are going to have another way so far as handling the traffic, morning traffic, evening traffic, getting the kids to school in the morning and
Right.
the evening coming in, that it wasn't going to bottleneck at just that one entrance that has a light on it.
Right, and Mill Park connects to GOM.
Okay, so that's the discussion I wanted to have. I also wanted to thank all the residents that reached out to me and communicated with me their concerns. Our system works best when people communicate with us and ask these questions so that I can ask the questions. So I want to say that I appreciate that greatly.
Thank you. Right.
Thank you, Councilmember Salazar. I know a couple folks down in her neighborhood too, and they were saying exactly the same thing that she brought up. I don't have any problems with it. It's just observation from my perspective. Since I wasn't on council when the Brycewood community started to unfold, these feel really small. Is this kind of the standard? Well, first of all, is this the last phase of what's being built out of
There is
Brycewood?
one more phase, Unit 5.
And they're going to be similar to this?
Right, because there's a development agreement that allows,
It's 2 more phases.
sorry,
5 and 4.
that's right, 4. It will be 4.
Okay.
1, 2, and 3 are in place. 6 comes in, and then 5 and 4 kind of backfill the area in between it. 3 is where they're building right now. These lots are kind of standards per the, they're smaller than, say, some other communities, but similar in size with the rest of Brycewood.
Like the front part, I think.
Correct.
Right. So it looks small on paper, but it's same as the neighborhood is there, it's just the extension further of it. And this is part of the overall development agreement that was put on there that was going to be instituted in phases. I would like to take this time to help clarify a point. It is a point, Marion, if you can speak specifically to it, the
Yeah.
general note number 11 for Paloma Drive.
Right, on sheet number 2, Paloma Drive actually goes out currently to a private property and a private road that could eventually go out into Beverly Hills, but that will be a emergency access gate only. So it will not go out into a actual full access ingress or egress access.
And that is what note 11 states
Yes.
specifically.
Right, and we actually had them put, not just note 11, but put it on the plat, showing that that's what it will be.
So what we're approving here is the plat. I would like to point out that there was a significant amount of discussion meeting, just give a little transparent background to this. Traffic through Beverly Hills is a significant concern of mine, as is of the residents there. And there's certain things you can do and certain things you can't do. And if you do things you can't do, you get sued. What we can't do is tell them that they have to put a emergency gate. You can't do that because then you put yourself up to liability. However, one of the things we take a look at is the impact of traffic, and the early stages is traffic impact analysis, which is basically a best guess. right? And one of the things that we can take issue with is thinking that maybe that's not an accurate number. And so one of the things that we utilized was just say that if the traffic increases so much, then they would be responsible for improvements on the roads in Beverly Hills, which they've decided they did not want to do. They want to put an emergency gate there. So that was their choice to put there. So it does protect a little traffic. Now, of course, you can never have one without a positive and one without a negative on the other. The positive for Beverly Hills is great, less traffic going through there. Negative is, traffic funneling through the two areas from there. But there are still developers always looking for options and future options that we'll take a look as time progresses. But we do have to put what protections we can and be happy that they came down the way they did in a manner that didn't get us legal exposure, which is a key of importance to me. So continue on with discussion.
I don't have anything.
Okay.
No, I don't have anything.
Cynthia?
I really appreciate you, you being forward in that, and you're thinking about that Paloma Drive and having that gate put up for the Beverly Hills residents. That's very important. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, with no further discussion, all in favor of approving item number 8 as written, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, on to item number 9, looking for motion and a second for discussion and action on item number 9.
Mr. Mayor, I motion that we discuss and take action on item number 9 as written.
I'll second.
President Burchett. Yes, sir.
So, listen to several of the EDC meetings where this has been discussed. This is several meetings in the making, and it's coming to us, and this is something exciting. I think it's an appropriate time, and I fully support what the EDC presents to us, and I would hope that we see future iterations of this program.
I like this program too, because this could potentially, with this art concept and these murals coming up, this could potentially offset the businesses that are growing along Bandera Road. And they can put a mural on there to soften it up a little bit, maybe. I think it has potential for something like that. It's a good idea.
That's Member Massey.
I'm not necessarily opposed to this. I just want to people to understand that one man's art is another man's junk. So it's going to be interesting to see what they come with, just understanding that this committee that's going to be in charge of deciding which art's going to go where, they'll put those people's names out there because they're the ones that are going to get it. They're going to say, what is this? This is art? I'm always a little dubious about government getting involved in art things because, but like I said, art is very subjective. So I don't know. I guess I'm probably willing to give it a chance, but just know that it's going to be rife with difficulties.
So I'd like to seize the opportunity to invite Glenn Goolsby as part of our assistant director to our EDC. Get that right there. And there is a total expenditure limit and a per project limit. And if you can describe those two things as well as who actually will be on the board or who will comprise that board if you don't have specific individuals yet.
I may be willing to reveal a few of our recommendations from the EDC board. The total expenditure that we're allocating this fiscal year is $15,000. It is intended to be kind of a pilot program to see what kind of projects get submitted. I think the board identified some key areas through their strategic planning process this last year and feel there's not a lot of exterior art in Helotes. We have definitely a gallery that has been a wonderful asset in Old Town Helotes, and we've looked at some other EDCs. San Antonio is our largest neighbor. They've done over 600 art projects around San Antonio. A lot of smaller EDCs are funding 1 to 3 projects a year. So it's something that's not only designed for a beautification aspect, but also for a tourism aspect. So the three categories we've identified are murals, small arts, and major arts. And each one of those has a maximum grant amount. The grant is also a one-to-one matching, so we're not funding the whole project in this particular program. Regarding murals, right now we're looking to pay up to $1,000 for small art grants, up to $2,500, and then the major arts grant would be anything over $2,500. The intent is to issue this almost as an RFP initially, to get all the submittals at one time, so we have different projects to review and select what the committee feels is the best fit for Helotes and location. So all these projects have to be located within either city right-of-way or visible from public view. So they cannot be inside of businesses or on private property, et cetera. Some of the thoughts behind the committee would be to have a representative from the EDC, a representative for planning and zoning from city council. There has been a request for the historical society, as well as an art professional. So I have reached out to Helotes Gallery, and there is interest in one of their members sitting on this committee as well. So it gives a lot of the stakeholders in the community an opportunity to determine
It's art or.
what's art, so we don't get junked, so to speak. Because you're right, I do understand it's all in the eye of the beholder, but like I said, we would have the stakeholder from all the entities here in Helotes to make that determination.
I have a question. Is this include sculptures or what does it include?
It could. Clearly, I don't think the dollar amounts that we're looking at this time, we would get a lot of sculpture applicants. The ones that have seen, the projects for sculptures are usually in the $20,000 to $50,000 range, and we're only looking at 15,000. So I think it's going to lend more towards a mural or some type of small. I'm trying to think what's a good example. In West Texas, where you have silhouettes out of steel, the cowboys and stuff. I mean, that could be an option.
Like an ironworks kind of thing?
Exactly.
Because, yeah, I'm trying to visualize. You don't happen to have any photographs of things you were considering, or when you all were discussing this, did anyone bring any pictures of anything?
We didn't. The one item that I brought up, I'm just a fan, greetings from a certain town. So Bernie is a nearby neighbor that has greetings from Bernie, and it's the old kind of greeting card, and then you incorporate different aspects. Pull it up, look at there, man, love technology. So you incorporate different aspects of the community. I think it's a good photo opportunity.
And where is this located? I know you said Bernie, but where in Bernie? And as you're driving in?
It's off of Main.
Oh, I see. Okay. It looks like it's a mural, a sign. It's just a big sign. It just got plopped in somewhere.
On the side
It's a mural on the side of a building,
On the
right?
side of a building. Okay. Okay.
And a lot of small towns throughout Texas have various scales of murals like this. Some incorporate, almost 100, like the whole courtyard of an area, but.
Okay.
So like Chicago's got that big giant, looks like a blob of liquid mercury.
The peanut.
Yeah, so it's just, of course, that was probably millions of dollars. And San Antonio did an art thing by doing sidewalk with, I don't know, it was like $100,000 worth of sidewalk outside of public safety headquarters. I still don't understand that to myself, but like, I don't know, I've seen longhorn steer,
Absolutely.
made out of metal, or I think about the Bear and the Bull there outside of Country Club,
Right, yeah.
That probably, if they weren't already there, that might be just such an item, to put it in perspective or something like that, something that people come by and take a picture on, or,
Yeah.
something like that. I've been in Austin, and I've seen, there's a bar that has a giant jackalope you can climb on and take a picture on. And that happens to be one specific for a store, right? But, you know, you have these things. So it's
Dallas,
important to know that just because we're allocating money, that doesn't mean that they are going to spend it. If they don't get good projects, they're not going to approve good projects.
Absolutely.
So it's just.
So, if I may,
Well, let me get to the rest of our council members. Did you speak yet? Yeah, you did. Sorry, Craig?
So Glenn, I just want to know a little bit more about, and maybe it's still being fleshed out, but the actual composition of the board. So I get who we want to have on it, which makes sense. I'm just trying to think about the dynamics, right? So, and I can't find it in here. So would the assistant director or the director be kind of like in this format here, kind of be the chair, not the voter, and then the other 7 would it function similar to most of like the way our other boards and commissions work?
Yes, sir.
In your mind?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I guess my other question is, what happens if we actually go forward with this and we absolutely hate it? What's the mechanism to whitewash it and get rid of it?
The demolition grant we would offer them.
I'm half-heartedly saying that.
No,
I mean,
right, I would,
Gallon of paint.
it's hard to predict, right? I would assume that with 7 members of the community and elected body, that we wouldn't approve something that was that horrendous. That we would need to throw it away.
Let's hope.
I'm good.
Linda?
Okay, I appreciate the creativity of this program. I think it's a really good idea, and I'm hoping for something just beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, just a lot of people out there may not understand our EDC or what it is. It's a wholly owned corporation it's owned by the city of Helotes. They're allowed to do economic development, which is, you know, an investment by the city to help draw in businesses, to be able to do things. And one of the aspects is, what is art going to do to bring a return of investment? Some of them, the returns are not monetary. Some of them are more aesthetic, or hopefully things that people come by and they like, yeah, let's go get a picture by the Longhorn Steer or whatever, the Big Apple in New York or whatever it may be. And so that's the thought process behind it. So I'm very much supportive of this. But any other discussion, questions? Okay.
you answered it.
With no more discussion, all in favor of approving item number 9 is written, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Looking for a motion and a second for discussion and action of item number 10 is written.
Mr. Mayor, I motion that we discuss and take action on item number 10 as written.
Crossan, second by,
I'll second that.
I see. Sir?
So once again, this is something that's been in the works with EDC throughout last fiscal year, and so it's coming before us. We come running up to this meeting, obviously, you know, I thought that the EDC did a great job of looking at where they could apply their funds to make it a little bit easier for businesses that want to come into Helotes, but are you know, prohibited by cost, and most often it is the finish out inside these facilities that are cost prohibitive for, you know, something like a restaurant to come in. You know, most recent we look at, you know, Casa Pasa and the money they had to put into that to finish it out and get it up and running. So I think this is something that is very appropriate for the EDC funding. And I like the intent. I hope it actually works, and I hope that this makes us a little bit more competitive than, you know, 2 miles down the road. The one thing that I did want to ask, though, after you know, given the support, is that going through the intent again, in terms of the matching, you know, matching the program intent when the EDC evaluates the proposals. And correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think I saw this in here, but will you guys, in your deliberations, have any consideration on the business type, not the industry type, but the business type? So if we look at, you know, some of the franchises that are in town, will there be any consideration for the density of similar businesses and like duplicative commercial services to perhaps avoid some of the, you know, what's very popularly discussed in town, one more chicken place? So, you know, I know what we're prohibited to do in terms of telling property owners what you can do with your property and where, et cetera. But since this is an EDC program, is there a mechanism for your evaluation to ensure that we do get what you state in the intent, those niche businesses, and to track them and help support them? Or are you guys pretty much bound by, similar restrictions as council?
Not bound by quite as stringent. We do have discretion. I know in general categories, there's a desire to have restaurants. I do understand there's maybe specific types that we may have quite abundance of. In the proposal, we're looking at $150,000. In reality, that is only going to help a handful of businesses coming in because the max grant amount is $20,000 apiece. We do have quite a few vacant lease spaces in Helotes, as well as several, I think there's 15 lease spaces about to come online. And yes, this was designed to make Helotes a little bit more competitive in the area. Majority of the prospects that we lose, they're going to 1604 because they can get a little bit more favorable terms. There's a few aspects as a city or an EDC we don't have control of. The price of land, lease price and stuff. This is a way to help try to offset that upfront cost for the businesses. Yeah, I think every single project is considered on a case-by-case basis.
Okay.
There are broad terms as far as eligibility, what they do bring to the city, number of, the amount of assessed, number of employees, and if it is I know targeted industry is very broad.
Okay. That was it. Yes, ma'am.
As I recall, the EDC had a program very much like this.
2014, 2015 was the last time we launched a large one like this.
Yeah, and kind of refresh my memory, we didn't have a lot of businesses who applied for this. It was also a split grant, right?
It was, correct.
There were a few, but not a lot. Is that correct?
The last time we did it, it was targeted to the strip center across the street, so it was only for the Helotes Plaza. It wasn't.
Okay. I do remember.
I guess there's two. You're right. We did another business improvement grant that included signage and a few other aspects that was broader for Helotes. So we have done two different programs. For the Helotes Plaza, Finks is still in existence. Not Casa Pasta, Pizzeria Vente, another Italian restaurant that we had. It came and went, but all the fixtures that were funded stayed. And there was a second generation restaurant that backfilled that space, and then now it's Shots Meat Market.
Right, that's what I'm glad you brought that up, because I remember when the Italian restaurant got the grant and put all the stuff in, and then within a year or two, they were gone. And I was wondering, was any of that money wasted? Of things that they had to for the next business that came in. So you just answered that question, and that's good to know. Let me see.
That's why we do try to keep the program to either fixed assets or things that cannot be removed easily with walls and sprinkler
Right.
systems,
Yeah,
fire
I was
suppression.
looking at structural walls.
Right.
Yeah, okay. So I think that this is another good attempt to help our business community, and so I'm for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree too. This is a pretty good thing. So Glenn, when you guys did all this, did you have a target business in mind for this? Or is it just anybody?
Ooh, man.
I don't think we had a target business in mind. We basically had a target area, which was State Highway 16, because that's where the vacancies are. So that's where we had a target area.
Okay,
That's where we
that's
see the
kind of where
least
I was going.
spaces. So I don't want to say a target business as well as the area.
Not a particular type of business,
Right.
it's just all of them.
There are categories
There are
defined in the
categories.
program.
I saw, so
Right.
it was like, did you have something particular in mind.
Because some of the areas that the EDC has identified, a desire to bring in more offices, desire to have more restaurants, retail, but looking at apparel, boutiques, the eclectic, wish we had this beforehand, sorry. But that's a perfect new business here in Helotes, provides a great, not only asset to the community, but diversification, which we're kind of limited.
It's good. So going down this way, Linda?
Yeah, I really liked this. I think that this is going to do exactly what it's intended, bring more businesses, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I like putting the carrot out there, right? And we'll see, right? Who wants to come and bite the carrot? I mean, you just don't know if it's going to be long-term sustainable, right? If, but that's business, right? It might, sometimes it's boom bust, but we got to try. And I want to thank you, Glenn, and your team, the board. I feel like the EDC engines are churning. We got two things to consider tonight. I know there's more stuff coming down the pipe. I'm excited with all the different things that you're bringing to council for us to take into consideration. And I'm very supportive of this. We'll see what we catch.
Thank you.
I'd like to make just a few closing comments, and that is that, again, I guess in an effort for transparency, there's some people that think we have deals made behind doors, and that's really not the case. And so to that end, we as a city invest a significant amount of money in the EDC, and their primary directive is kind of split twofold. One is to draw new businesses, and two is to help increase in the business to make sure we keep the business we have alive, right? We have a vested interest in you as business owners succeeding. It's one of the reasons why we do market days, for example. It helps whole towns stay afloat. So we really don't have that many vacant spots left over in the city of Helotes. We are limited in our size. We got 2 parcels of land and maybe 8 or 9 empty shells salted throughout the city. So there's not a lot of space left. So when we do this, this is an effort to help draw business and fill out those last spots, and that results. For those who don't understand, we may invest 20. That's the maximum amount we invest in a business. A lot of times it's $5,000 or $10,000 or something like that, and it just maybe just that little bit extra to help a business go ahead and sign the deal. Maybe do it now as opposed to later. That's going to generate sales tax, increase property taxes, various other things, and that'll be revenue for the city. That part of it goes back to the EDC, and the rest of it comes help to float our bills and expenses here. And so to that end, this is one of the programs that definitely fits the bill for their first directive. So I'm glad it has finally come here. Without any other discussion, all in favor of approving item number 10 as written, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, Glenn. And EDC. This brings us to item number 11. There's no motion needed for this because this is just going to be a discussion and direction on amending portions of our municipal code of ordinances, chapter 34 environment, article 3 outdoor lighting, and chapter 66 signs, to reinstate the planning and zoning commission as the final authority body on exterior lighting and signage for commercial development. I'm bringing this topic to council for our discussion, just kind of kick this around a little bit, give some direction to staff on how to write and propose some ideas so that we may be able to revamp our ordinance there. Give a little history. P&Z, their job is to, when somebody comes in for business plan review, say, what does the ordinance say? What do they want to build? And sometimes they want to build something that is outside of our ordinance, and that requires a variance. And sometimes they want to build, like we saw tonight, signs that are within the ordinance. And simply put, if the ordinance says you can build this and they're coming in with a sign that's inside of that, there's no reason for them to deny it. And so they recommend, and it comes to council for approval. That is I feel is an unnecessary step. Back in the day, P&Z had authority. They were an authoritative board. They could approve that, and that's as far as it had to go. It didn't have to come to council. Somewhere back in time. Uh, Previous administration decided that they wanted to take that authority away from P&Z and add an extra step to ensure council control. That's the best I can come up with my understanding of that process. I feel it's redundant. I'd be hard pressed if I was a council person. I don't vote, council people vote, but I'd be hard pressed as a council person to deny an application for something that is within an ordinance. If the ordinance says you can have a sign that's 20 square feet and you're applying for 18 square feet, how do you say no? And so because of that, I think it's wise for us to reinstate authority for items in lighting and signs that are within the ordinance. They can approve that, and then that item doesn't have to come to council. My suggestion is that, and it would still be that if they had a variance said 20 square feet and they wanted a 40 square foot, that would be a variance. Variances would still have to come to city council. So it's not giving them authority to grant variances. It's giving them the authority to approve within the ordinance and to recommend approval or denial of a variance request, and variance requests would still have to come. There is a process that goes through this. This is a discussion to get council's feedback on what they think, if this is a good idea, to resort back to the way things were way back in the day. And if so, it's going to require 2 public hearings in the process, or just
No, on this one, it does not require any
this one
public
is,
hearing.
okay, the next one does, okay.
Correct.
Yeah, the next one, because of Old Town, my bad. Scratch that. But so let's just open up for discussion on what you feel. We'll start with Craig.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, so I know when I was campaigning, running for this position 2 years ago, one of the frustrations I heard from a lot of business owners was, especially if there was no variance requested, they had to go through P&Z, and then if there was a council meeting delayed and it was 3 weeks later, that's 3 weeks that the business owner didn't have the opportunity to have their sign approved and on their business. So I think what you're suggesting makes a lot of sense, and I think there's a lot of support within, especially the business community. If they're not asking for a variance, then by all means, P&Z is more than qualified to make that decision, right? And for it not to have to come up here. But I didn't catch the nuance with the lighting. It made it sound, and maybe I misunderstood, that the lighting wasn't, all lighting issues, even if there were variances, would be done at the P&Z level?
So and that's what we're just kicking off for discussion. This is,
No?
you guys can direct,
No,
however.
all variances come to council.
Okay, that's fine.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I thought you were talking about why.
No.
You can just
no,
say.
I'm good. That's where I was driving at, was all variances should still come up to
Yes.
this body. But whenever, and I think that's what you're all driving for, is we make decisions at the appropriate levels, to not waste time, not duplicity, and, and speed of service to the community. I'm all for it. So I would support that.
Okay. As the liaison to the Planning and Zoning Commission, I try to attend every meeting, if not watch it afterwards. I'm continuously impressed with the work that they do. Every time I go, they ask questions I would have never even thought to ask. They have great discussion, and I think I absolutely, is what I was trying to say, support this, that if there's no variance and people are operating within the rules that are already there, I think planning and zoning should absolutely have that authority to just grant it and move forward, and leave us more with things where there's variance and we need to look at it more closely.
Okay, so I got the support statement and then one question. So in terms of the support, I concur with, or echo basically what my colleagues have said so far. I think if we're going to, appoint volunteers to any of the boards, there's obviously an implicit level amount of trust, and obviously we'll vet them with their expertise on this. And so far, yeah, I agree. I think at least one of us knows at least one person on P&Z or every board that we have in the city, and I trust the current board, and I think this would eliminate some lag in the process. The one question I do have, though, is just run me through, if you can, like an example on that asterisk C note on sign variances. P&Z will continue to review and provide recommendations to city council for final action.
Sure.
And so what would that look like and how?
So we had a sign approved today. That we approved, two of them actually, right? So they brought in there and they recommended it was within the ordinance, allowed in the ordinance. So what we're talking about here is that because it fit in with the ordinance and there was no problem, no variance requested, that P&Z would be able to approve that. However, if they were applying for a sign that was twice as big or 10% larger than what the ordinance would say, they would perform the same review that they do now, and then they would recommend either approval or denial, just like they do now, because it's outside of the scope of the variance. It would, or outside of the scope of the ordinance requiring a variance. So anything that would require a variance, they would be recommending to council. We recommend approval, we recommend denial.
Okay, so in the context of the document we have here, so the proposed ordinance amendments would amend exterior lighting and then signage, and so the asterisk note here only applies to the signage. If there's, then Marion just said all the variances.
I'm sorry, it should be all variances.
That's what confused me.
Yes,
too
it should
when
be
I saw it.
variances for both lighting and signage.
Okay, all right,
Yes.
no, we're good. Thank you.
Yeah, it doesn't give them authority for all lighting.
Okay.
Just lighting that fits within the ordinance. So if they approved it, how could you not, or how could we? Sir.
Thank you for bringing this to council. This is long overdue, I think. There are, like my colleagues, I'm just going to echo real quick. These guys are plenty qualified to make these decisions. And if it's a variance, then we should have that. So I'm all for this.
Okay.
Yes, I'm for it as well.
Okay. Well, staff will proceed with putting this together, and we'll get it on the agenda item as soon as possible. Which brings us to item number 12, which is also just a discussion and a direction on amending the Municipal Code of Ordinances, Chapter 66, Signs, and Chapter 98, Zoning, Article 3, District Regulations, Section 9872, Old Town Helotes, Special District, subparagraph G, signs authorized to modernize sign definitions, classifications, and regulations. So I'm bringing this again in similar fashion. This is just to kick the can around and figure out if we want to do anything, what do we want to do? Our sign ordinance is extensive. Sometimes it's burdensome. Sometimes it's saves the city and community, and sometimes it really is onerous. It depends on who you are and what you're looking at, and a lot of times you read through our sign ordinance, and well, quite honestly, it can be confusing at times, and there might be some better language. Reaching back, there's been a lot of work that was done by a previous city council and planning and zoning to redline. Literally hundreds and hundreds of redline recommendations, and then that just sat dormant for a long time. So we picked up the ball and started, walking with it. So we want to bring some of those changes in the future, but there's some special things. A lot of those are housekeeping, wording, terminology, redundancy, these type of things. But there are a couple of things that I wanted to bring up for discussion. As you all know, you've all campaigned and gone around, you've talked with businesses, you get perspectives and ideas, and that's where you get a lot of the basis for what you feel is an important platform issue or something that we need to protect in the city. Another venue is when you have a new and unexpected situation arise, and when somebody comes and makes an application for a sign, and all of a sudden you start to scratch your head and you're like, that's a good point. And so I've come across a couple of these. Our Old Town sign ordinance, in Helotes, we allow monument signs to be 8 feet tall, okay? In Old Town Helotes, we have the limit to be 5 feet tall. This is the first example of height. And as everybody knows, Old Town is primarily a pedestrian area. The cars do go through on the road, but it makes sense not having big giant monument signs and whatnot. And so that was really written. In fact, I was here as a council member 15 years ago when we were 14, when we did that back. I guess we finished that in 2009. Took a couple years to finish that. And that was really the mentality behind it. We need to protect Old Town, you know, from giant signs. But the issue comes in is that some of these properties have frontage in Old Town, and then the backside of their property, the other side, faces State Highway 16. And the question has arisen that sometimes the signs on that side, 5-foot sign is perhaps not appropriate in the fact that you have people driving 50 miles an hour, you have line of sight issues, you have various other things. And if we think about it, starting with El Chaparral, going to the Helotes Baptist Church, Elf Hardware, Floors Country Store, the city of Helotes' own sign, I'm missing a couple others, probably the Realty, probably Young Brothers. It's not like we've protected from 12-foot signs. They're all over, and I point out even the city of Helotes' sign at the parking lot is got to be close to 14 feet. I'm estimating on there, but I will get specific measurements, but it's roughly 12 to 14 feet high. And so there's one or two businesses that are left that everybody else has signs except for them. And a 5-foot sign in some of these areas is perhaps on the highway side, something we may need to take a look at. So that's one. I'm going to run through all 4 of these, and then maybe one of them hits home. But this is not a decision. This is just kind of discussion to kind of kick this out. The other part is kind of size limits. Right now, we allow 20 square feet for a business to have a sign. They can have 20 square feet in Old Town. So if you put that on the highway side, is 20 square feet really sufficient for highway speeds? Kind of a third issue is tied with that. If you want to do a monument sign, and you had 3 businesses, for example, and you're allowed 20 square feet, 20 square feet, 20 square feet, that's 60 square feet. That would be approved, no problem. However, if somebody wanted to build a 48 square foot sign for those 3 businesses, it would be disapproved, even though it's a smaller sign, if one of the signs was an anchor tenant and had 30 square feet, and the other ones had, 9 and 9 square feet for a total of 48, if I did my math right there. It's smaller than they allowed 60 square feet for the 3 businesses, but would be disapproved because one's bigger than 20 feet and the other 2 are smaller. And so my thought process on that was, when we take a look at monument signs, pretty much anywhere, often there's an anchor or a primary tenant and then a couple secondary tenants. And so the question for discussion is, do we want to look at that, and without changing any of the size restrictions of the individual signs, do we look at monument signs in terms of total square footage for the number of businesses? We allow 60 feet. Shouldn't we allow 60 feet regardless of how it's broken up between the number of tenants? You get one bigger but 2 smaller. And does the net sum, as long as it equals what we have, is that appropriate? And then the final item that I had noticed, I'm sure all of you are familiar with the Young Brothers sign and how it's set up. It's, if I can demonstrate, you can have a billboard sign, what I call a billboard sign. That's not the proper, what do we call these? So you have a sign here, it's got sign on one side, sign on the other. That's allowable. And if this was 60 square feet and this was 60 square feet, that would be counted as 60 square feet. It's just front and back. However, if you split it like this, now it's considered 120 square feet. And Young Brothers is set up like that, but Young Brothers is grandfathered in from previous, et cetera. But the reason for variances is when you have topography. One of the main reasons for variances is topography, right? You have a property and it's supposed to be, your house is supposed to be set back so far, but there's a hill and a mountain and a rock or whatever, and so therefore you apply for variance, right, for geological issues. So a couple of the properties are subject to large historical, not historical trees, heritage trees, and curves in the road, and such that if you have a standard sign sitting out there, you're not going to see it until you're already past it coming this way. And if you come this way, you've got a huge heritage oak. Putting a sign like this allows people to actually see it at an angle because the angle would not be blocked by a tree, for example. I'm using that as an example. And so these are the kind of the questions. Do we want to take a look at differentiating between state highway side and the pedestrian side of Old Town properties? Is it reasonable to consider that it's not applicable to all the businesses in Old Town? It's just those businesses that are kind of stuck with two different types of traffic. They're completely different animals when you're dealing with line of sight, speed, safety issues, trying to drive by at 50 miles an hour looking at a 5-foot sign versus maybe a little bit larger, easy to see sign. And, we're not talking billboards here. Please, nobody start sending those emails. I'm sure they'll come anyways, but this is what I kind of wanted to bring up for discussion in any other items that you may have. We'll start down this way.
Thank you. I wanted to ask you, so you highlighted in green it's the Old Town sign regulations. Those are the ones you're mostly concerned about?
Correct, because those are the ones that specifically involve they have Highway 16 frontage, but those properties are included in the Old Town Special District.
Correct, okay. So my question is this, you just mentioned that there was just maybe 1 or 2 properties there who had this problem with, okay. So rather than change the ordinance, wouldn't it this is why we have variances, right?
Certainly.
And so I'm just kind of, because I was here, I've been here a long time, and I remember all the meetings about there has probably never been any issue that more people would come to the meetings about than signs. They didn't want Helotes to look like Leon Valley or San Antonio with gigantic signs. In fact, anyone maybe you don't even realize it, but when you drive in from San Antonio and you coming down Bandera Road into Helotes, everything sort of calms down. It's because of the signs, because we have the lower signs. So I'm just concerned that especially that area stays with the sign ordinances that we have. I do understand the concern of the outlying Bandera Road. Now we're going a little further out into the hill country, and there is a lot of signs that are grandfathered because our city limits go to a certain point, up to El Chaparral, I suppose, or a little further than that.
On the highway, it goes almost all the way up to 211.
Yeah, on the highway,
the land, yeah.
I'm talking about on the highway and the shoulder, that goes quite a ways out. And if you drive out there, you'll see there's a lot of pole signs and there's a lot of big, signs. And it's because they're grandfathered in, as they should be. And the other thing too is, out in that area, it's the hill country, and there's a lot of trees. And you're right, if you don't have a bigger sign, no one's going to see it. You're driving, you're looking up in the hills, you're not going to be looking down at the 5-foot monument sign that's going. So I do think that there might be some way, we'd have to really word this in a way to just mention perhaps, an area, I don't even know, a street. I don't even know how to do it, how to delineate where this would start, this new ordinance, we were going to have it. And I'm not sure we necessarily need it if we have the ability to give a variance. So I guess, so my question is, what are the main variance requested that have prompted this, and has P&Z weighed in on any of this?
So, no, they haven't, and it's something that would definitely like to discuss with them, but this is really kind of the sum of some applications that have, or inquiries to application that I had conversations with a couple business owners, and I thought, well, you know what, I felt they had valid points, such that they can certainly apply. We're still awaiting applications. Nobody's been denied because nobody's actually applied for anything, right? So this is really more in a case of, personally, I would rather approach things that if our rules allow this and people apply for this and we're constantly giving variances for this, well, it seems like the law should be that, and we don't grant variances beyond that. You know what I'm saying? So if we're granting variances to there as a regular basis, then perhaps our underlying ordinance was too restrictive to begin with, and we all recognize it, and that's why we end up giving those variances all the time. And if that's the case, it's kind of incumbent upon us to be able to take a look at, well, what do we really want? Well, we really want this, and we don't want anything above that, and this is the limit to where we give our variances, but we give those 100% of the time anyways. Well, then we should do this and not
And
really
that's one of
take-
the concerns with P and Z is not as much this past year or so, just because construction has kind of slowed down, but in the past of giving as many variances as they have given or approved or recommended in the past. And so it's kind of like, let's look at this and see what variances have been given and why we've given it, and do we need to look and change some of the sign, the chapter, and see, okay, if we continue to give variances, then do we need to change our sign ordinance to accommodate those? Also, we, as staff, we've also looked at other parts such as our temporary signage. So with the banners, with some other stuff that we don't allow, we've had requests and we've denied it. It doesn't come to y'all, they're just denials, there's no variances for those. So there are some things that staff has seen, besides that we want to bring up when it comes to the temporary signs. And then also there's a lot of cleanup. I read all through chapter 66, word for word. There's a lot of cleanup that needs to be done. A lot of things that we realize shouldn't have been in there or needs to be identified or clarified within there because it is confusing, or we just need to update. So there is some things that we do. We do want to also bring this into P&Z because P&Z wants to, they have some ideas and so forth. So yes, we want P&Z's input in this. So we are going to bring it at the next meeting.
Are the variances about height or the square footage of the sign mostly?
It's a difference between some of its height, some of its square footage, some of it's how do you figure out square footage, because technology has changed. So it used to be just a box, that's how you figured out signage. Now there's channeled letters and so forth.
Right.
So there's different methodology of figuring out that. Also, if it's not clear on the height, I believe on one of chapter 66 talks about the grade from the ground to the top. Well, we need more clarification from staff, for staff, so we know exactly what that is and that measurement, the methodology of that. So there's a lot of that we also need to put for the wall signs.
Speaking specifically of that, you all remember when Methodist came, they asked for a sign variance because they had, Methodist, and they had a little thing up here. So the size of the sign wasn't this plus this, it was from here, all the way up to there, all the way over here, and all the way down, and that was the calculation. And because we calculated all that area that wasn't signed, but that was considered because it was by box dimensions. It's a legitimate methodology, but another methodology is the smallest would be the actual square foot of the letters, and others is to block out where you have words and then add the sum of those. And so there are different methodologies out there, but the point is taking a look at what makes more sense. What are we granting variances on, so that instead of becoming a P&Z and a city council that is just throwing out variances all the way, maybe we need to take a look and better define what it is that we want as maximums, such that they are just that, they're maximums, and that a variance happens once a blue moon, for some extreme situation, whatever it may be, just to, again, tighten things up. So I'm bringing up a couple examples. These would be line item discussed and more in detail. Councilmember Massey brings an excellent point. For a specific business, it certainly can be applied and they can go through a variance process, and that's it. But maybe part of the discussion is, hey, if you're going to have a monument sign, the size, the total area of the signs, we don't change anything, but maybe we take a look at that. That's something that could be applicable in the future application as well as tenants change and what have you.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to take.
No, go ahead. Do it.
You asked for us to define, and I just noticed that we don't have a lot of defined definitions for things as far as signs. Reverse channel letter, illuminated sign, cabinet box sign, channel letter sign. and the cabinet box sign, I kind of figured out what it was. But what's interesting is I know that behind B Daddy Barbecue, there used to be a cabinet box sign, and it's a historic sign. It was there, well, in the 1970s, and then for some reason they took it down. But that sign, to me, goes much better with the Old Town area than the little monument sign that's there.
The irony of it is that that sign that was there and had been there forever, it was taken down. That sign would never be allowed by
Current standards.
current standards or by people, because I think that sign right there is 14 feet tall.
It's pretty tall, but.
And it was your big sign, and the square footage was like 120 some square feet, but it had been there forever.
It's also considered a pole sign, so that's an exemption.
But it
you
would have
know?
been an exemption, but the thing is, I think I would like to have, the fact that it's, he ran this through us, the Historical Society. And the whole board looked at it, and we all agreed that if something, yes, it couldn't be grandfathered in because it wasn't there when he bought the property.
Right.
But it's a historic sign, and if he could replicate something very similar to that sign, the cabinet, and like, if we approve something like that, the historic signs like this should be approved in Old Town. Because let's think about it. Helotes Country Club has a pole sign. Flores Country Store has pole signs. I mean, there's so many pole signs there that it's sort of ridiculous that this one in the middle that would serve the good purpose too, because of the big heritage tree. You could actually see it.
Well, and that's where it comes when you talk about the split signs, because building that sign there couldn't be built there for several reasons. One, the setback and the requirements we have for a monument base, it would have to be behind the fence, for
Well,
example, on this
no.
particular example, but.
This is the point. We don't have to have a monument thing. The other thing too is the way that I was looking at the section 6649 on monument types. And the problem, I think he's been having a real problem because he wants to put 3 businesses on this one sign, right? But the way the ordinance is written, it says that there is one sign for each street frontage on which the building abuts. The 3 buildings are there. The only building that abuts Bandera Road is his business. The other 2 the frontage is on Old Bandera Road.
Well, actually, it's, my wife knows the name, Anu Physical Therapy, is that what that, Anu, yeah. Anu Therapy has an exit in that red building, also frontage. It's small, but it also faces Bandera Road as well, too.
Oh, it does?
Yes.
So there's 4 businesses there.
So, yeah, you have an edges there. 2 of them, I can see what you're saying would be, but the point is not really necessary to identify those specific.
But no,
to
but you
say-
have to, I'm talking about the abutted, because right now, it says one sign, you're talking about cleaning up.
Right.
The ordinance.
Yeah.
It needs to be cleaned up.
That's what I'm saying.
And,
It's not as
or
clear.
either that, or it hasn't been followed properly.
Well, and that actually doesn't apply to O-Town. So that's actually exempt in O-Town. In O-Town, it has its own commercial monument sign. So it has you follow a different one, which is more restrictive than that.
So 98 is what governs Old Town because of special district, 66 are regular signs. So they do have their own set of rules, and that's where it kind of comes up here, is that because the rules for Old Town are so restrictive, that when you apply that to frontage road, do we need to take a look at that and redefine that, better define it, more clearly define? And so what we're looking for here is kind of discussion that, yes, we think maybe we can take a look at some of those things, in which case we can put some wording together, take it to P&Z, get their input, and then bring it back for further discussion. And again, as we've seen before, if we aren't finished with our discussion, we can always table and continue it on as a process. I don't take signs and lighting lightly in any manner, but I feel that if there's something that needs to be adjusted, that we need to, and we kind of have the responsibility that if something's kind of gone askew over time, or because of development or whatever, there's some changes that need to be made, it's part of the process is updating. And it seems like we have a couple of things that need to update. Maybe not all of them, maybe they need to stay variance related, and that's hence the discussion. Anybody?
I think it would be good to delineate Highway 16 from Old Bandera Road going forward, right? Because if you have the two, I mean, if your business has both, you should be able to use both sides of it. That's,
And so
Seems
I'm also
kinda
thinking there are several businesses along that corridor that currently don't, I'm thinking the, you know, bicycle shop, for example, they don't really use anything on State Highway, but who knows, you know, 30 years from now, who knows what might be there. And so it's not necessary that we just have one business right now. This is really kind of set the standard that if we do the work now to set the standard to recognize that, we can solve those problems so that the standard is set, you know, in case something changes, you know, ownership changes.
So along those lines, you know, many of the people in the audience here heard the same thing that anybody up here that watched the P&Z meeting. Forget which commissioner stated it, but he brought up a good point that, you know, the speed limit will very likely change in the future as things get developed. So if we're looking for the future, in terms of, you know, what do we want it to look like? Councilmember Massey brings up a really great point. I didn't even think about the transition into Helotes going north because of the sign ordinances. It is, I mean, it's apparent when you look at it and you think about it. So thinking of it conceptually 15, 20 years down the road, let's say, you know, we continue to see, you know, on average, one of those properties developed a year. At some point, I suspect that the state engineer is going to come back down and say we need to adjust the speed limit. And at that point, if we raise the sign limit to, which at eight, I think you said, or whatever it is that going to be congruent with what we have already on State Highway 16, Old Town South to, you know, our city limits? And so that would be a concern. I mean, I'm open to hearing recommendations, obviously staff. Now to that point there, so that's all I have to say on that one is, you know, going forward conceptually, let's think about what Councilmember Massey said, because that's an amazing point that you really don't think about until somebody says it. But in terms of the staff's identification of some of these, we've talked about this before on the EDC. Yeah, there needs to be some clarification, and that's a great point that, you know, what I saw in the EDC is not what I'm seeing here, because you guys automatically deny these things. And on the campaign trail, I know that, I don't know if we discussed it a few times or not, but especially like the Helotes Plaza, there were some issues with signs. I know Old Town, they, a few of them had concerns with some of the signs that are not authorized in our ordinances. So I think it would shore up a lot of some of the issues that we heard coming into council, and then obviously staff's input. You know, I mean, you guys are the ones working this. You know, and so lastly, if P&Z is going to, if they know this is coming, and it sounds like they're ready to work on this because they know it's coming to them, I would just throw it out there and recommend perhaps, you know, EDC as well, and see what pre-development issues have been with some of the concerns. Because I mean, you know, these franchises, they come in and they have their own branding guidelines, you know, and so, you know, I'm not saying let's just, you know, throw all the rules out and let any franchise that has a national brand or anything like that. But what has, if there's like a certain franchise that just said, no, this is too onerous, you know, we don't want to come in, or, you know, a mom and pop shop that was like, you know, your sign ordinance is just not something we want to deal with. You know, EDC would know that from the pre-development meetings that we weren't privy to. So I would just throw out there, maybe get, you know, maybe like an executive summary or brief from them about some of the bullet points over the last, you know, 3-5 years, if there's been anything. And that's it.
Yeah, I definitely think we need to re-examine these. Again, at the P&Z meetings, I see so many variances that it does, at a certain point, beg the question, well, okay, if we're just giving variances left and right, why do we have the rule? So, yeah, I definitely think we should relook at these, reevaluate, get some input from the businesses that would be affected. I know I've, talked to the folks at B-Daddy that, that they have the issue where, they can't put the sign they want because of the rules. And so, yeah, I say we move forward and see what we can do to streamline things, make things consistent, and make it easier for staff.
Greg?
Okay, I'll be quick. So I think I'm open to it. Bottom line, though, I think the underlying statement we got to keep in the back of our minds is do no harm. I think we got a good thing going on here in Helotes when it comes to the look and the feel. I don't have the historical perspective. I've only been on council not even quite 2 years. But what I've seen and observed, and correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of the variances seem to be for signs out in the ETJ and less so within the city. Is that a consideration? And I don't want to use Methodist because they had state rules and regulations of why they had to have certain signs in certain places, and then they had a branding thing. So they had some justifications. But putting them aside, my 2 years, it seems like, and I've even heard the comments on the P&Z board, and that's not a bad thing. What I've heard is just like, it's the ETJ. It's not, people are traveling faster. We're a little bit looser in the way we interpret the ordinances, and that's my perception. And if that is reality, then maybe that needs to be accounted for in the ordinances when we look at this. Like, ETJ is treated a little bit differently, maybe because of speed limit. Maybe because businesses are further away. I don't know. But those are my thoughts. I'm open to it, but do no harm.
So to answer a couple of issues that were brought up, starting with yours and working backwards, ETJ, sure. But specifically, one of the things we're talking about is in Old Town, which is specifically defined by, in Chapter 98, and it specifically relates to those dozen properties, right? So it really, ETJ really has nothing to do with Chapter 98, right? It has just with Old Town. Within Old Town, for those, do we take a look at that aspect? On the topic of, what variances have been granted, that really is a function of what period of time you're looking at. So right before you got in, and if we take a look back, whether it was through variance or whether it was through development agreement, you take a look at pretty much every sign along Bandera Road. It's not 8 feet tall. They're all, a lot of them are considerably higher. We take a look at monument signs, CVS, Valero. We take, down even some of the monument signs for the community that we, the housing committee that's coming in there by, where is it? The 27 houses that are being built down there. And, thank you, Bandera Oaks. That actual sign itself required a variance. We take a look at. It really has become a mix historically. It just depends, 1 year it's ETJ, next year we have a couple businesses in, but businesses are pretty full here, so there's not a lot of business. So it really kind of comes to that mix. It's random. You just never know what's going to hit.
Like I said, it was an observation. My 2 years, it seems like most of the variances have been granted. And I also thought the discussion was bigger than Old Town since we're talking. I thought we talked about Chapter 66, which is bigger than Old Town.
For sure.
So if we're going to look at that, that's why I brought that up.
Yeah, no, and that's a very valid point, and that's why I wanted to distinguish. Okay. So you have the 66 signs, which would be for everybody, and then the 98, they're specific. So you can have separate set of rules for the special district that wouldn't be applicable out there. Working backwards to the speed limit, we have a speed limit through here where it's fully developed here, right here in 16, right? So the areas where it's 55, maybe it drops down to 45. That's a potential. I don't get that feeling from any of my conversations with TxDOT that they ever would consider that. We'd have to have this type of development out there. Now, does that happen?
They raised it. Yeah, it was 45 and they raised it to
55. So it kind of was going the opposite direction. But if in the future, personally, where I see our city limits, where they stop as far as our control of our land, yes, we have ETJ, but I can't see the development out there. And I imagine 50 years from now, hopefully we still look like what we do right now. But I don't think that speed limits necessarily are going to be an issue, because if we do, they certainly wouldn't drop to wouldn't be 35 out there and then speed up to 45 over here and out in front of City Hall, for example. But I think that's less of a concern, but still something to keep in mind, you know, how does that impact, you know, the future development, make sure we're doing it in conjunction with long-term planning. Anyways, there's no decision to be made here, just kind of wanted to get that out there so you can start thinking about it. The only way we can bring this to all of you is if we have this as an agenda item so that we don't have a quorum issue otherwise, but now you all can be thinking about it. We'll come back with some language, some feedback from what you're considering, and to be certain there will be a lot of housekeeping issues, and then our major issues we'll be sure to take to P&Z prior to bringing them back to you all.
Yeah, once we speak with P&Z, then we'll come back to you with so many recommendations they have as a discussion item. And then at that point, we'll need direction because this will have to go into a public hearing. So we would need direction from you at that point to start the process of a public hearing.
All right, any other additional comments, considerations? No, with no additional questions, we'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Time is 8:30. We are adjourned.